What's up, guys? Welcome to Gaming Under the Influence. My name is Alex. This is Mike. Coming to you from the Green Dragon Cafe and Video Game Retail Store, the best place to play and purchase games, hopefully at the same time, while drinking 100 plus Ontario craft beers.
Yes.
All the good stuff.
All the greatest stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Today,
What are we drinking today, Mike? I got a passion fruit guava.
Alex is enjoying passion fruit guava kettle sour. It's only 3.5% alcohol, tons of juice. Very mildly sour, I would say, that one.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
It's
It's
more
delicious
sweet.
and refreshing summer beer. I'm pretty sure they're going to stop producing it over the course of the winter, so enjoy it now while you can.
I certainly will.
It's delicious.
What do
And
you got over there?
I got Flying Monkey's Killer Cupcake Panda.
Oh, boy, that's a
double
heavy one.
IPA. Got some pandan leaves in there, so there's some vanilla overtones. Probably the origin of that cupcake title there. Both delicious beers, both very different styles. We have many like both of those and also a number of other different styles here, so please stop by, try them all with us.
Please do so. And at the same time, play Gears of War with us. Or
Gears of
Greedfall.
War, yes, or Greedfall. The two Gs we're here to talk about today, I guess.
Jeez.
Yeah, we've been diving into both of those for the past 3-4 days, I guess I would say, and we have fairly
Since Friday, I think.
comprehensive grasp over both titles, I would say, at this stage.
Yeah, I'd say I'm about halfway through Gears 5, so I'm putting in decent time relative to what I normally
Nice.
put in. I mean, comparatively with, the longer Japanese games we tend to play that
Yeah, over the course of a month or so.
take quite some time to get through. This
Yeah.
one's a lot shorter campaign-wise, so I'm about halfway through, and happy to report that. So far, I like it. I mean, it has been getting good reviews, but you can't trust that shit. You know that. It's been, as you would expect, a Gears of War game to be full of action. It's just densely packed with good old shooting locusts, and actually, surprisingly, what I want to bring up later, but briefly touch upon, almost every enemy you've ever encountered in a Gears of War in the whole series is present here. So that's cool too, like to mix up the enemy
is pretty
variety,
cool for
right?
sure,
Like
yeah.
I was surprised to see even like the sires from Gears 2 make a return, but anyways,
Got your Brumax, those tunneling spider guys too, probably. You got
you know what? I haven't seen those yet. I don't think there's not
probably
too
some boss encounter or something.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, there's a Berserker boss encounter that I just completed yesterday, so that's in. It feels a lot like they sort of used somewhat of a template with God of War 2018 in terms of that open world thing. We touched upon this before, that we were kind of skeptical about the open world, semi-open world mechanic being involved in this game, but for the most part, it feels like God of War 2018, where you're sort of riding around to your objective and you can sort of detract from there and mostly find. I'm sure there are sections with enemies. I haven't encountered too much of the side stuff because I haven't really cared for it, but mostly I found just collectibles and those upgrade. There's these upgrade things that let you upgrade Jack. Actually, one thing I didn't talk to you about earlier was Jack has some cool functionality in this game.
I saw
That
that,
sort of
actually.
it kind of brings a little bit of variety into the combat and
Light
some of the
RPG elements.
Yeah, it's some
the
cool stuff.
progression.
He's got some skills that you can upgrade and stuff. So that's cool too. I mostly am playing it in a linear fashion, as like another Gears game, as you would in 1 to 3 or Judgment or whatever.
I guess first and foremost, I just want to know if you feel that, not only the open world elements, but like the game design as a whole in relation to previous entries in the series. Like, does it feel like it comports well with the logic of the series? Is it like a development or an advancement on the series? Does it use the series as matter to make something new and beautiful, or is it really just like
I think
corporate boardroom game design where they're like, yeah, we have this successful property, let's milk the fuck out of it?
That's when you say corporate boardroom design and fuck it milking, I think of the multiplayer. Like, I think in terms of the campaign, I think they're doing a pretty good job of staying true to the sort of the Gears of War mantra there. Whereas, I mean, multiplayer is a separate beast. We can touch upon that later. But in terms of the campaign, and I've said this to you before, I think they're doing a better job than 343 is doing with Halo. I liked Halo 4, not so much 5. Those were the two games that were made from 343, which is the studio concocted to make Halo games going forward. The Coalition, of course, being the Gears of War developers that have been concocted by Microsoft to just push out Gears games, which I hate the idea of it. We've spoken about this before. I hate that they're making studios that are just tied to making
a single brand and franchise.
one brand, and no creative creative freedom whatsoever aside from just the one franchise. But whatever. That
You're hired
aside,
not as a game maker. You're hired as a Gears maker.
yeah, basically, right? Aside from that, though, I feel like so far halfway through the campaign, I think it feels and plays like a Gears game. The story follows, like a narrative that I think is doing Gears of War justice.
Very good to hear.
I really do think that. And it's sort of like, it's got like the twists and the stupid shit. Like, basically, Kate, who's the main character in this one, she's having a lot of flashbacks. She's having nightmares. Her mother passed in Gears of War 4, and you sort of unravel why and how she's connected to the Locusts, and it's bad shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's sort of like, it feels very Gears of War. Like, she's fucked up, and it's because basically her grandmother is Queen Mira, which means now that Queen Mira died in 3, you take her down at the end. And then in Gears of War 4, Kate's mother dies, but she doesn't actually die, which is what you find out in Gears 5, is that she's basically being prepped to be the next Locust queen, because apparently they're fucking stupid and they need a queen to give them orders, or else they're like totally lost, which I can't imagine why. They don't only really have one objective. And at the same time, I don't feel like it was necessarily shoehorned in. I mean, I could see the argument being made that, they're just shoehorning this into the story, but I think so far it's been executed well enough that it's believable in the world, at least, for sure. But yeah, so I like it because it's pretty twisted. You see sort of Kate's struggle, trying to figure out what's wrong with her, and Act 2 mostly focuses on you sort of trying to figure out what the fuck is wrong with her. She keeps having these visions, and every once in a while you'd just be walking through and everything would turn red, and
Sure.
it's just like
She trip balls.
yeah, she's basically tripping balls, and she's seeing shit. And at one point she even sort of takes control of Locusts against her own will. The player character, sort of controlling Locusts, shooting humans, and the whole thing is that it was her controlling them because they want her to be queen as well, sort of follow the lineage from her grandmother to her mother and then eventually to her. So we'll see how it ends, and we'll let you know on our next video, but
I'm excited for
that's
that.
where we're at so far.
I was like the universe of Gears.
Yeah, like
That
I
was
feel
interesting.
like it's really cool. They're doing it justice, I feel like. Yeah.
Good to hear, man.
I'm digging it.
I'm excited to try
I
it
touched
myself,
upon the
despite my skepticism.
yeah, I mean, it's like you said with the boardroom fucking video game bullshit. That's still in there in terms of the multiplayer, which I find to be at least a little more. I don't know if I want to say I'm okay with it, because I hate microtransactions. I hate all that shit. But at the same time, multiplayer is a component that sort of just needs to continue. They'll release new maps. They're going to have tournaments, esports events, whatever the hell. So I can see where they need the additional funding, maybe. Like, it's expensive to keep servers up and stuff. It's not just like a one-off campaign thing like you sell.
You know
God
where
of
they might
War.
make that money from? By actually selling the game. Instead of giving it to people for
Instead of giving it
$2.
to people for $2 on Game Pass.
Yeah.
You're right. Hey, you're right. I can't argue against that.
Yeah.
That's Microsoft's fucking decision there, and
that's great. It's all good. No, hey. What the fuck do
but
I
yeah,
know, right?
so obviously, even like Horde mode and stuff, we're not really going to touch on multiplayer. I played a couple matches. It's Gears multiplayer. If you like shooting your friends or shooting other people with your friends, it's the multiplayer. It's multiplayer. I feel like is just it is what it is. And there's Horde mode, which is also fun if you want to dick around with your friends, but we don't really have any interest in that. I'm more interested in the campaign and how it plays out, and then if there's room for a couple multiplayer matches one day, maybe I'll dive into it again. But
I'm glad that it's a well-received product, because I do
so far, yeah,
have affection for the universe and the
I do
property,
too.
I guess.
Absolutely.
Would be
It's
sad to
better
see it
than
go
I
sour.
honestly expected it so far to be. So I'm happy to report that. At least we've mentioned many times that we want it to be good, and I think it could be good now.
Very good, man.
Yeah, unless it takes like a total downturn in the next half and just turns into dog shit. But we'll let you know.
I guess
you
if the
follow
reviews
us,
or anything to
probably
indicate they are the game concludes competently, based on what I've read. So
I mean, yeah, if you're going off the other reviews,
Yeah.
they seem to be pretty positive.
yeah, I'm excited
I
to see
think
how it
higher than
plays.
4. I don't
Sure.
think 4 was reviewed that well. It was kind of like
Not terribly. It was like in the 8s.
It was like, yeah, like the 8s, but it almost seems like when Microsoft just gets like a bunch of 8s, I almost feel like it's out of obligation. Everyone's like, yeah, Microsoft made a competent game, we'll give it an 8, but it's not
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
that great. I don't know.
got a nice coat of paint. it's competent, but yeah. No, I understand what you're saying for sure. Its reception in the industry is almost a given at this stage, but
yeah, right. Like everybody's bought off by Microsoft at this point. I think Microsoft, give us your money.
Yeah,
fuck you. We don't even want it.
It's interesting to note, contrarily, like reception of the other game we're going to talk about, Greedfall, which is obviously not the same caliber of release, not put out by a giant company like Microsoft, and as another commentator remarked when Days Gone was released, perhaps people feel, in the journalistic sphere anyways, more ease like shitting on a less popular title.
Oh, of course. It's a lot easier for them to do that. There won't be much backlash.
I definitely believe that. But this time around, it doesn't seem like people are really jumping down its throat too vehemently for that or for any of the obvious things they might have done so, that they might have jumped on it for. I do have a number of criticisms from some famous reviewers I'd like to touch on briefly before this segment is over. But yeah, just to provide you with a brief description of the game. Greedfall is a high fantasy Western RPG set in this like colonial-inspired, 17th century-inspired fantasy universe. There's an old world, kind of like continental Europe, populated by these three main nations. Those being the one that the player character is a part of, called the Congregation of Merchants. They're kind of like Venetians who live in this city that looks almost like Dickensian London. Lots of smoke and tall buildings and brown and stuff like that. There's the Thelemites, or the country of Thelema. They're like these Spain/Catholic Church inspired country that go about converting natives to their religion and stuff like that. And then there's the Bridge Alliance, like an Arabian inspired country of alchemists and scientists and stuff like that. So these three countries are already locked in cultural conflict on the old world, and it's the job of you as kind of an advisor, as the cousin of the prince of the Congregation of Merchants, to mediate disputes between them, not only in the old world, but also on the new world, where you're about to be sent with your cousin who's going to govern the new world. He's like the prince of the congregation. So his dad, who doesn't like him much, is like, hey, buddy, you're going to go to the new world and take over.
Good luck. Sounds pretty interesting.
You depart with your cousin for the new world, and you essentially in a capacity as a diplomat to mediate between the various factions in the new world, those being the three countries I just mentioned, as well as the natives on the island of Tirfurdi, which is where most of the game takes place.
Right.
There's a couple of other factions too, one called the Knots, who are kind of like the, I don't know if you ever read Dune, the Spacers Guild. They're like a guild of seafarers. Like they have this really secretive organization, and they take care of all like sailing across the ocean and stuff like that.
Okay.
There's also a guild of mercenaries called the Coin Guard, and you have faction levels with each of these different groups that you can raise or decrease by killing their members or helping them with quests and whatnot. And I guess a lot of the story involves you going to the new world, trying to first and foremost find a cure for the plague that's killing your mother and many other people in the old world.
Jeez.
And as well as to mediate disputes between the different factions. And things can unfold in any number of different ways. You can take different approaches. You can sympathize with the natives or with any of the different populations on the island and try and raise your reputation with them, usually to the detriment of other ones, because the way most quests conclude, you have to choose to side with one faction or another in resolving the dispute. So it's pretty cool. And some of the factions have synergy between each other, like Thelema and the natives are not as antagonistic as the Bridge Alliance and the natives, because the natives and the Bridge are already at war with each other. But the Thelema wants to convert them, so they're trying to be more friendly, even though they end up burning a lot of their population as heretics. But one really interesting quest I wanted to touch on, in response actually to a criticism I read today on Kotaku.
Oh boy, here he goes.
After somebody who I don't even want to mention posted their impressions based on 10 hours of gameplay.
Wow.
Their biggest complaint against the game was its non-critical depiction of colonialism, to sympathize, or rather to summarize. This person was upset that you could not, quote, destabilize systems of oppression in the game, that you couldn't take to arms against all of the bad stuff that you saw going on, that the game didn't offer like some sort of sustained criticism of the colonial ideal, blah, 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 blah.
I just rolled my eyes so fucking hard.
Yeah, I think I just shit my pants a little bit after hearing that, but...
I got one question before you move on, sorry.
Yeah, please.
Just because, I haven't actually seen anything from this game, nor have I played it yet, but it looks interesting. But if you had to pick like one game that you would say mostly...
That most resembles
Dragon
Age Origins.
Age Origins,
For sure.
I've never played that either.
In more ways than one, but I'll get back to that in a quick minute. But I did want to mention a little bit about the this notion of colonialism and how the game treats this like conflict between different nations and powers. And like one of the more interesting side quests I played out so far was a Thelema side quest, where the mother cardinal, who's in charge of Thelema's kind of colony on the island, she sends you to look for a bunch of inquisitors who got lost in the swamp. And what these inquisitors were doing was looking for like evidence about the founding prophet of the Church of Thelema, this guy called Saint Matthias, because apparently he lived on the island at some point, right, in the New World. And you go on this expedition with these inquisitors, and what you uncover is that the saint or the prophet who founded this religion, like he went to the island originally and he lived there, and he was like buddy with the natives. Like he wrote a bunch of texts saying that like, the natives worship the same god as them. The god of Thelema is called the Luminous. It's like some, being of light and fire, and the natives worship some nature deity, but apparently Saint Matthias of their church said ultimately that we both worship the same god under these different aspects and stuff like that. And your character, armed with this knowledge, after you find out, you go back to the expedition, and it turns out there's some inquisitors from the Church of Thelema who like don't want this information to come out, obviously.
Yeah.
Because they've gotten to the island, and so far they've just been like trying to convert the natives and burn the ones who don't want to convert and stuff. This would obviously imply that like that's a misguided course of action, of course, because their prophet like reveres the god of the natives alongside his own, right? So the game's like retort to the colonial problem, I guess, would be that fucking universal truth that knows no boundaries of nation, right? Like if something's true, if something's good for fucking the natives or for Thelema, like there's no reason why in the light of a universal truth, different cultures can't cooperate to build something better and exchange knowledge and medicine and all of the other artifices of, civilized society. So this like fucking ham-fisted, purely Californian notion that fucking somehow like it's intrinsically bad for cultures to meet and to live alongside each other is to me like not only fucking so gravely cynical. Like, why do you assume that meetings between cultures need to end in the exploitation of natives and bloodshed? I don't really assume that off the top of my head.
I mean, I wouldn't either. Yeah,
initial,
I don't understand.
And history also militates against that idea. I guess we won't get into that right now. But the point I'm trying to make, I guess, is whatever the real world occurrences may have been, the game proposes that in a world where there are different competing cultural tendencies, universal truths can reveal all of our different points of contention is ultimately skin deep and irrelevant, That's what the game has to say. So fuck you, Kotaku, once again.
Yeah, honestly.
And this fucking
off.
whining about nothing. Like only a person who doesn't believe that two different kinds of people can share a truth could really look at the world that way, But this being a game, we should briefly mention, its gameplay components. And gameplay in this game, in its discrete elements, like what you'll be doing from moment to moment, consists in equal parts of, I guess you could say, Souls-like combat, to use the term once again, and Dragon Age Origin-inspired conversation or exploration segments, or more properly, I guess you could call them like world interaction segments, because it's not just that you're talking or exploring, but you're doing non-combat actions in the world. In fact, there's a number of skills that don't pertain to combat, like science, lockpicking, vigor, that allow you, like, for example, with science, to concoct like explosives to blow up caves or holes in caves and make shortcuts. Lockpicking obviously allows you to open chests you wouldn't otherwise be able to open. Vigor allows you to jump across gaps and take shortcuts that way. So world interaction along with conversation. There's charisma, a world skill for conversation specifically. Alongside combat forms, the bulk of the discrete gameplay actions you're going to be participating in this game. And the progression structure governing these distinct instances of main loop gameplay, which in the past we've called the progression structure kind of like a tangible, playable, sensible symbol of the story or the development of the action. Progression is composed here of typical RPG talent trees and faction reputation meters. Faction relations and player power increases in proportion as the story progresses and the importance of the protagonist in the world progresses as well, and as you find yourself in more challenging encounters or scenarios in the world that require more world skills to complete. I guess I should mention briefly that I really enjoy the combat in this game. There's a number of different dodges, which, if you know me, that's often my favorite element of most action-heavy role-playing games, or just games generally, like Bayonetta or Astro. I really enjoy when there's a nice dodge mechanic. They incorporate perfect dodges into it in many cases. The mage gets this magic-based dodge where you can kind of dash across the map, and the warrior unlocks a Dark Souls-style roll. So combat feels really good and responsive and deliberate, as you would expect of a game inspired by Souls, and the conversation options are intense, man. I found myself thinking each side quest consists of like, you know, it starts with somebody saying, oh, you got to go pick up this like paper for me at a place, and you think it's going to be some like one-off fetch quest, but it turns into this like 10 or 15 step thing that takes you all across the map, and you end up learning some serious stuff about the world and having cool conversations with your characters, and like who you even bring with you on quests determines how people there will react to you. Because if you bring a native character, you know, to the palace of the Bridge Alliance governor who's currently at war with them, he won't react well. And you can't even bring your Thelema party member in there because those two nations hate each other too, right?
Wow.
And if you bring a native character on a quest that requires sympathy from the natives, you're more likely to attain it. And even depending on how you dress, like if you go into certain areas that are faction specific, not dressed like a member of that faction, you'll be attacked on sight. But if you put on their clothing, it gives you the option not to fight them and lose reputation with that faction consequentially. So there's numerous ways to tackle pretty much every goal that's posited to you in this game. And I really like the fact that, just like in Fire Emblem Three Houses we mentioned, like progression very like acutely governs the distinct instances of, you know, moment to moment like core loop gameplay. Like if you're fighting or talking to somebody or trying to find a shortcut somewhere, like it's always in service not only of progressing your character and making him better according to like the numerical like menu based progression, but via that, you know, through that, like progressing him through the story too, because all that stuff in a good RPG should only be there as like a symbol of what's actually happening in the wider universe of the game at the end of the day. And it feels that way to me very much. I lost myself in this one. I played it like over the weekend. I had a couple of days off. I put like 20 something hours into it, and it took us like 3 weeks to beat Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, you know? So yeah.
Wow. Yeah. This is why these games are more suited to you. That was intense. But yeah, totally, dude.
Yeah.
I know there's one thing you mentioned that you weren't too pleased with about the some of the visual.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So
do you want to touch on that?
A criticism in the skill up review I saw this morning was that there is not much in the way of environmental or city variety.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to go ahead and say, like, straight off the bat, like, at least where the external environments are concerned, this is factually false, right? Like, the footage we'll put up in this part of the video, you can see you go through swamps and caves and pastures and green-looking places and brown-looking places and gray-looking places with very different trees and wildlife, yeah. I'm not even finished the game yet, and I saw a number of different environments that totally dispel this notion. I think by the end you visit some fiery volcano and stuff like that, too. Yeah, there's many different outdoor environments that you visit that all look very different from each other, and the same goes for the three major capital cities, both the Lima and the Bridge Alliance, as well as the Congregation of Merchants, your home country. They all have capital cities or colonies on the island of Tearford there, and when you go to the Bridge Alliance city, you can see like it's inspired by Arabic architecture. There's like those kind of doors that look like keyholes from Aladdin, like, you know, different architectural style than there is in the Roman/Spanish-inspired city of Thelema versus the Dickensian London style city of the Congregation of Merchants. So not only in terms of environmental variety, but also in populated cities, there's a fair amount of variety. The only place this falters is when you go into one of the buildings in the one of the three main continental cities, because as I discovered early on, like the building interiors are
all the same.
All the same, yeah, all the same. There's pretty much two different building interiors. There's a palace interior, which is when you go into like the palaces
total
in each
carbon
city.
copy, not even.
They're like the same layouts and stuff like that. They have different colors. The furniture's in different places. There's different like decoration
but
inside.
It's clearly
when
the
you
same,
walk in and you walk
reskin,
up, yeah,
right?
you could tell it's like they just for the palace interior and for the interior of all the different people's houses that you visit. They're all exactly the same.
Okay, I mean, if that's the worst of it, that's not even too fucking bad. I mean,
it is like, to me, it does fucking shatter your suspension of disbelief. I don't like that kind of stuff at all. Like, asset reuse annoys the hell out of me, because how hard would it be, buddy, for you to just fucking tweak the geometry
even
in
if
this room,
even if you came up with like
on the other side, like
even if you came up with like 2, 3, or 4 different type, you wouldn't be walking into them you know, one after the other. It would just it would
maybe there's some other reason they couldn't implement that easily, which I'm unaware of, but yeah, that kind of sucked for me. But everything else is totally like wonder inducing. Like, I feel lost in the game, you know. I love going and exploring. I love seeing the new monsters. There's all kinds of crazy mini bosses that I'm pretty sure you're going to discover some kind of twist about, like their origins and stuff like that. Yeah. I mean, and same goes for the main character. He has like some mark on his face that all of the natives recognize, and you find out, this is a big spoiler, that his country had actually gone to the island like a long time ago to try and colonize it by force.
No shit.
And stuff. Yeah.
You fuck.
Yeah, it's all building towards some kind of conclusion. I'm sure that the prophet of the Thalima's religion is relevant to this too, so I bet you the guy's going to be some kind of chosen one who can restore balance on the island or something like that. But
It's possible.
Yeah,
we'll
some
have to
Christ
find out. I
figure.
mean, you convinced me to play it, and
Yeah.
so did Kotaku, to be honest. But
Yeah. Thank
that's
you,
all
Kotaku.
ever fucking does for me is
Yeah.
convince me to play awesome games that they have a problem with. So
It's like an inverse imprimatur. When fucking people wanted to publish books in Catholic countries back in the day, they had to get it stamped.
oh yeah,
The ecclesial authorities had to say, like, there's no error in this, and then after that it can be published. So it feels like when I read a Kotaku review and it's
that's
giving...
your snap, man.
That's the stamp.
They gave it a bad review. This is good.
It's awesome.
Oh,
when Kotaku
man.
says something's bad, it's definitely good, boys. Is that a joke?
Fucking A,
Yeah,
open
so-
your eyes. I like it.
If they don't like something, it's awesome. If they say something's offensive, it means it's beautiful. Yeah.
I can dig it, dude.
Yeah.
I'm all in. I mean,
Yeah.
we've been pretty much living that
Yeah.
so far.
Yeah.
So
So I guess
just continue onward.
yeah, those are our early impressions concerning Greedfall and Gears of War. Not that early, I suppose. Midway.
Well, I'm
impressions.
midway through the campaign.
We get 20 hours through this one too.
Greedfall. I haven't played though, so maybe if I have some time to dig into it a little bit before.
I'm gonna try and play Gears 5 tonight a little bit.
Yeah,
actually.
there you go. We'll
dabble in it.
cross swords in the next video.
Yeah, man. Yeah, for sure.
Something.
Thank you very much, guys. I hope you have a good evening.
Thank you.